It was supposed to be a time of care, compassion, and closeness. Instead, Caitríona Balfe found herself facing not only a grueling recovery in the hospital but also a devastating truth about the man she had once called her partner in life. And when the truth finally erupted, it came in 4 sharp words that echoed louder than any applause she had ever received. "Get out of my life." In the sterile light of the hospital, the hours dragged on endlessly. Caitríona lay weakened, fragile, her body fighting to heal. Machines hummed softly beside her bed, their steady rhythms the only reassurance in the stillness of those nights. For most patients, these moments are eased by the comfort of family. But for Caitríona, it wasn't her husband Tony McGill sitting at her bedside. Instead, it was Sam Heughan. Her longtime co-star and closest friend never left her side. He adjusted her blanket, read her lines from old scripts just to make her smile, and waited silently during the moments when words were too heavy to speak. His presence was quiet but unwavering, a constant reminder that she was not alone in her battle. And yet, in stark contrast, Tony was nowhere to be found. While Caitríona fought through exhaustion and pain, rumors trickled in from outside. Tony McGill, instead of being at the hospital, was seen at late-night parties, laughing in dimly lit bars, appearing carefree in the company of friends. Photographs of him raising a glass at a glamorous event surfaced online, images that cut deep into Caitríona's already fragile heart. The betrayal wasn't only in his absence. It was in the public nature of it, the way he seemed to parade his indifference while she struggled alone. The man who had vowed to be her partner through thick and thin was absent in her darkest hour, and the world could see it. If the absence of her husband was a wound, Sam's loyalty was the balm. He never asked for thanks. He never sought recognition. He simply showed up. Night after night, he remained in that hospital chair, his eyes heavy with fatigue but his resolve unshaken. Those who witnessed it, nurses, hospital staff, even close friends, were moved by the sight of him. Sam wasn't acting. He wasn't performing for cameras. He was simply being what Caitríona needed most, a friend who refused to walk away. And with every passing day, the contrast between Sam's devotion and Tony's neglect grew starker. The confrontation came suddenly, raw and unfiltered. One evening, as Caitríona scrolled through her phone from her hospital bed, another set of photographs surfaced. Tony again, this time celebrating late into the night at a crowded party, while she lay tethered to IV drips. Her frustration boiled over into anger, and anger into heartbreak. The dam broke. When Tony finally appeared at the hospital after days of absence, she could no longer hold back. Her voice, though weakened by illness, carried a sharpness that stunned even him. "Get out of my life," she said, her words cutting through the air like shattered glass. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't even a request. It was a command, born of betrayal too deep to mend. Those present felt the weight of that moment. Sam, though silent, understood the enormity of what had just happened. The nurses exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the collapse of a relationship in real time. For Caitríona, the words weren't impulsive. They were the truth she had been forced to confront. That love without loyalty is an illusion, that vows mean little without action. Her illness had revealed not only the fragility of the human body but the fragility of her marriage. As night fell over the hospital once more, Caitríona lay exhausted, not just from her health battle, but from the emotional storm that had torn through her room. Tony left, his presence no longer welcome. In his place remained Sam, sitting quietly as always, offering the comfort of silence and the strength of presence. But questions lingered in the air like the sterile scent of antiseptic. Was this truly the end of her marriage? Would Caitríona find the courage to follow through on the decision her heart had already spoken aloud? For now, the only certainty was this: Caitríona Balfe had drawn a line. And with those 4 words, she had set in motion a new chapter, one that promised heartbreak, yes, but also the possibility of freedom. Silence hung heavy in the hospital room after those 4 words. "Get out of my life." They were not whispered in anger only to be taken back later. They were a declaration, final and fierce, spoken by a woman who had been pushed beyond her breaking point. And once spoken, there was no undoing them. Tony McGill left that night, the echo of the slammed door trailing behind him. What remained was not emptiness, but clarity. For the first time in years, Caitríona Balfe began to imagine a life no longer defined by disappointment or betrayal. Sam Heughan did not speak much about what had happened. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. After Tony left, Sam adjusted Caitríona's blanket, poured her a glass of water, and simply asked, "Do you want me to stay?" Her answer was quiet, but resolute, "Yes." And so he stayed, not as a replacement for what had been lost, but as a reminder of what loyalty truly looked like. Night after night, Sam remained by her side, giving her the strength to begin imagining what came next. The word divorce was not something Caitríona uttered lightly. She had entered marriage with faith, believing in vows and promises. But the stark contrast between Sam's quiet devotion and Tony's selfish indulgence made the truth undeniable. A marriage without care is a hollow shell, and she refused to live inside one any longer. In the quiet hours, when monitors beeped steadily and the world outside spun on, Caitríona allowed herself to think about freedom. What would it mean to step away? To close one chapter and begin another on her own terms? There was pain in the thought, of course. But alongside the pain was something new: relief. As whispers of the incident trickled into the public sphere, fans reacted with a mixture of anger and support. Many were outraged at Tony's absence, pointing to the photographs of him at parties while Caitríona lay in a hospital bed. Others rallied behind Caitríona, praising her courage and resilience. And always, in every conversation, one name surfaced: Sam. Fans celebrated him not as a romantic fantasy but as a real-life example of unwavering loyalty. Hashtags trended, memes circulated, and messages of support flooded in. "We all need a friend like Sam." It was as if the fandom had shifted its gaze from scripted love stories to a more profound reality: that sometimes, the deepest bonds are the ones that ask for nothing in return. Caitríona's recovery was not only physical. It became emotional, even spiritual. With every day that passed, she regained strength in her body and clarity in her mind. She began speaking more openly to those close to her about the decision she had made. Divorce was no longer a frightening possibility. It was a necessary step toward reclaiming her life. Sam never pushed her, never advised her one way or the other. He simply listened, and in his silence, she found the courage to speak her truth. "There's nothing left," she confided one evening, her voice soft but certain. "I don't want to live a life where I'm forgotten by the person who promised to remember me." What made this chapter of Caitríona's life so powerful was how deeply it resonated beyond celebrity gossip. Fans, women in particular, saw themselves in her story. They saw the quiet betrayals, the nights of loneliness, the courage it takes to finally say enough. Her decision wasn't just a headline. It was a mirror held up to countless lives. And Sam's role in her journey became a symbol too. He was proof that friendship, pure, steady, unconditional, can be the strongest anchor when the storms rage hardest. As Caitríona prepared to leave the hospital, there was a lightness in her that hadn't been there before. The road ahead would not be easy: papers to sign, judgments from the outside world, scars both physical and emotional to heal. But she no longer feared it. Because she knew that strength was not just surviving what had happened to her, but choosing what would happen next. When Sam wheeled her out into the crisp air that morning, the sun spilling across the horizon, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. It was more than the end of a hospital stay. It was the beginning of a life lived on her own terms. Her words, "Get out of my life," were no longer just the outburst of a wounded woman. They had become a mantra, a declaration of independence, a reminder that freedom often begins with a single act of courage. And as Caitríona Balfe stepped into this new chapter, she carried with her not only the scars of betrayal but also the strength of survival, the loyalty of a true friend, and the knowledge that sometimes the most explosive message is also the most liberating.